Last week, Ginger Chris and I talked about who are your favorite Indians players and why, and so on. In fact, I forgot, a fan once upon a time sent me Jack Kralik, his baseball card, because for no reason I could ascertain, Jack was one of my favorite players, and of course later on I found out he was a guy who was a bit odd and put dead rodents in other players' lockers. Not making it up, it's in my book, The Curse of Rocky Colavito. So what about other favorite players? Well, I put an email address in the video. In the first hour and a half, I got over 100 replies from people. This is just part of it. There's a bunch there spread. And then I pulled it out because I wanted to make sure I could at least respond to most people or whatever. Like the first one, I love this. This is from John. John said when he was a kid, he wore glasses. And he was a catcher wearing glasses. And his favorite player became Alvaro Espinosa. Why? Because he wore glasses. So there you go. That's John. Here we go. Andrew said, years ago I met Vern Fuller. He was a backup second baseman for the Indians. And I said, guess what? You're my favorite player. Vern said, guess what? No fan has ever told me that before. I met Vern for years. He's lived in Cleveland, has worked for different hotel chains, a wonderful guy, but was not a lot of people's favorite players. Here we go. Kenny said, as a little guy, I saw Toby Harrah in the concourse of the old Municipal Stadium. He was larger than life to me. He says, he went over, got Toby's autograph. He goes, those days were a wreck. Tom Verizor, David Rosello, Don Hood, Victor Cruz, Sid Manji. Hey, I covered those teams for the Plain Dealer through 80 through 84. I could tell you stories. They were indeed a wreck. All right, here's Steven says, Gomer Hodge. Why? Because he went 4 for 4 to open the season. He had 4 straight pinch hits, which is true, and he told the writers, I'm batting 4,000. Which was true. Bob Sudik, the old Cleveland Press, wrote that story. Gomer also was very excited back then because he had terrible teeth, and when he got to the big leagues, he finally had enough money to have his dental problems fixed and get a good set of dentures. I'm not making that up. It was a different time. I love this one. This is from Jim. He said he was a little kid riding the Van Aken Rapid going downtown. He said, my dad pointed at me and goes, that's Al Rosen's house right there. And he goes, from that day on, Al Rosen became his favorite player. Rosen, of course, was a terrific player for the Indians in the 50s, and then later became an outstanding baseball executive with both Houston and the Yankees. All right, here we go. My favorite player, Kenny Lofton, the best center fielder of his era, highly underrated. Vince sent this in, and Vince made a good point. Hall of Fame voters such as myself, who left him off the ballots, ought to be ashamed of ourselves. I wrote a column about that, and Vince, I got to own up to it. All right, here's another one. This is from Chris. My favorite all-time Indian was Albert Bell. Several fans sent this in just because they liked when he pointed to his bicep and all that. The other thing about Albert Bell is he said he gave them kind of a, he goes, he reminded me of Ty Cobb, you know, just I'm not going to take any garbage from anybody type player. And let's face it, now when it came to Hall of Fame voting, I voted for Albert every year that he was on the ballot, because for 9 straight years he drove in at least 100 runs. I considered him a Hall of Fame player. All right, here we go. Ed said Daddy Wags, which is Leon Wagner, played in the 1960s. He was fun. He was in the same outfit of Rocky Colavito. Rocky got a bunch of votes too. But I like this one. He said, and an infielder named Jack Brohammer, he became my favorite player when I was in the hospital. The Indians were doing one of those visits, and he met Jack Brohammer. Jack Brohammer is about my size, second baseman, and played a few years in the big leagues. I always thought that Jack Brohammer is one of those guys you meet later on in life. You go, I can't believe that guy played in the big leagues, but he did. Here's one just kind of simple. This is from George. He said when he was a kid, his favorite player became George Strickland because he had the same first name. There weren't a lot of Georges in the big leagues. And so then, you know, here's another one. This is from Kendall. Travis Hafner was my favorite player. He said, I was like 8 or 9, and I sat way deep in right center. I brought a big sign that said, hit it here, Prunk. And in the middle of the game, he hit a ball that landed 2 rows right above my sign. So there you go. And finally, this is an interesting one. This is from Patrick. He said back in the day the Indians had these behind the fence parties, and you get to meet different players. And he met Joe Charbonneau, who he liked a lot, and he said the other was Jerry Dubzinski, a local Cleveland kid. Dubzinski and I are basically the same age, and he played for Collinwood and I was at Benedictine, and I actually played in a game against Dubzinski, and at that time, he was at that point a third baseman, not even a shortstop, and he was skinny, and he had these big, thick glasses, and you never would have expected another guy like that to play in the big leagues, and he had a nice career for 4 or 5 years with the Indians and later the White Sox. So lots of other names came in. One guy just sent in, sometimes people just send in names, like one guy said, I like Tommy Ragland because nobody else did. By the way, Joe Tate, his favorite player was an infielder named Tommy Ragland with the Indians in the early 70s. Another one, Sam sent in Gus Gill, because I think Gus Gill started the season by going like 1 for 38 or something like that. So it was kind of a mercy call there. And of course, you know, there are a lot of votes for Oral Hershiser, Dennis Martinez, some of the greats. But I just kind of decided to concentrate on obscure players. And you know, thank you so much for just sending these in. I just laughed at some of the emails.